Nobody mentions it. Tell me one historian, one historian who mentions Mecca. One. Have you got one?
Just like how you made the argument about your New Testament, why you don't have as many fragments. If you made the claim that it was papyrus,
right?
But that's 100 years, right? You're talking about thousands of years. You're saying that over thousands of years, not a single person wrote about Mecca.
All we've done is make statements. We've given you historians, academic studies, evidence from your own Quran. What have you got? From here to here?
Yes, what's the logical route? What's the logical route?
Where's Mecca?
How far is that?
Where's Mecca?
How far is that?
Where's Mecca? You have not even yet established any evidence of Mecca's existence from before the time of Islam. No evidence. Oh wait, he said, right, this is why I'm going to show how one Muslim contradicts another Muslim.
When? I need to know the exact date.
Which invasion are you talking about?
I can't remember, but they came from a port city. They either came from a port city or came from north. I can't remember which one.
Well, they would have to come north of Mecca.
Yeah. No.
But you just admit you don't know which invasion we're talking about.
There's two. Because there was one where they actually went to one of the port cities and tried to go inland, but they were defeated again.
Right, so clearly you don't know what you're talking about.
Same with the Ethiopians.
Clearly you don't know what you're talking about. Allow me to correct you because you don't know what you're talking about. No, you didn't give any evidence. The Romans invaded the Arabian Peninsula in the 1st century, and they invaded from the north, and they got all the way to what we call, I think, is it Yemen or Oman now? I forget which way around it is. You don't know what you're talking about, bro. You don't know what you're talking about, and I'm telling you they did, and I'm telling you they did because you don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't know what you're talking about. You honestly do not know what you're talking about. You honestly don't know what you're talking about. You honestly don't know what you're talking about. They invaded. It's connected to the Mecca thing. So they invaded and they went down the whole of the sort of southwestern coast of Arabia, which is where Mecca should be. They took strongholds. They got all the way down to Yemen. They decided not to stay there because it was logistically impossible to maintain a presence, which is why the invasion was short-lived. But in their invasion, Ethiopians had a colony much later. Again, you don't know what you're talking about.
So did the Sassanids control the area as well.
Throw out as many distractions and red herrings, but you've got to listen to what I'm saying. Why are you trying to listen to what I'm saying? So listen. So the Romans invaded and conquered the strip that Mecca sits in. They never found or recorded a great city called Mecca. Do you know why? Because it wasn't there.
Even if I grant you that, to get to Mecca from that coast would be a very, very difficult journey. Mecca, remember, from the coast, Mecca is about 100 miles in, right? And it is a very hostile area. The elements would kill off entire armies if they didn't know what they were doing. No, you should know this.
Bro, you're clutching at straws.
I'm not.
The army that invaded from Egypt,
100 miles.
The Romans had had centuries of experience dealing with African deserts and Middle Eastern deserts, Syria, Palestine, Jordan. They had presences in all of these places, northern Arabia as well.
Central Arabia is one of the hottest places on the earth.
So why don't the Romans know about Mecca? Tell me, why don't the Romans know about Mecca?
I don't know that to be true.
Well, I'm telling you, they've got no record of Mecca.
I'm not going to believe you, Bob, am I?
Yeah, even when they
There are other records. I can't remember them now. There are other.
There isn't.
So in other words, they don't exist. Until you can bring some forward that we can look at, we have to assume they don't exist.
We have no evidence for Moses splitting the sea. Well, I don't believe in that now because you can't.
That was a localized thing that happened at a certain time. You're talking about
a city that's existed for thousands of years.
The Red Sea.
Yeah.
Split the Red Sea and killed a pharaoh.
Was there a settlement in Mecca from the time of Adam?
There's a difference of opinion about that amongst Islamic scholars. Some say it was Ibrahim, some say it was Adam.
From the Islamic fictions, how old is Mecca?
Christian fictions.
How old is Mecca according to Islamic fiction?
Islamic thoughts, it is It depends. There's a difference in opinion.
Okay,
some say
so
he
give me the
established
difference
Ismail.
of opinion.
Yeah. So some say he established Ismail.
So
and
Bronze
Ibrahim.
Age, yeah.
Say again?
Bronze Age.
Yeah, could be Bronze Age. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to tell exactly. I don't know exactly when Ibrahim was. Abraham was there.
Yeah.
But,
So that's
you can
before.
guess what
That's
you
before
want.
Alexander the Great. So it's before the Roman Empire.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going to make any determinations about that right now. And there's another opinion that says that it was Adam. He built the Kaaba, and then obviously.
So right back to the very beginning of human civilization.
Yeah.
So our options are, according to Islamic fiction, that we go right back to the beginning of human civilization and say that there's been a settlement at Mecca since the first humans, or we go back to the Bronze Age, before the Romans, before Alexander the Great, and yet no one records anything about Mecca existing until we get into the 7th century, 8th century.
It's funny how we're looking at history to try and make determinations. To make determinations on this, because we go to the Bible and the Gospel of Matthew. If we go to the Bible and the Gospel of Matthew, we can see that there was clearly no massive that took place in the Gospel of Matthew. 100,000
You turned away, I didn't even hear what you said.
100,000 babies slaughtered by King Herod.
Where does the Bible
not
say
recorded.
100,000?
Huh?
Where does the Bible say 100,000?
It was every single baby above a certain age.
Yeah.
It would be
Where
thousands.
does it say 100,000?
It would be thousands.
So the number was
It would be
completely
thousands.
made up.
Every single
like
baby.
everything else this man is saying, he's literally making things up.
So we have an
Wait,
entire
how many people? One second. How many people lived in Bethlehem and the surrounding regions at that time?
Could have been thousands, Bob. Could have been thousands. Am I wrong?
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
you'd be lucky, bro. You'd be lucky,
lucky.
if
How many?
it was over 2,000. You'd be lucky if it was
Come
over
on,
2,000.
Bob. There was
Bethlehem
2,000.
was tiny,
There was
bro.
apparently 2,000 people that Paul was
Right,
talking about.
tiny. Bethlehem was tiny back then.
Paul literally says that 2,000 people, 2,000 disciples, maybe even 1,000. So you mean
Paul says.
Paul,
Where does Paul-
how many disciples did you say were there at the end of the time of Jesus? He says 1,000 or something.
So shall we look it up?
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I don't think he does.
Yeah, it does.
Thousands.
There's not 12. There's 1,000.
Thousands.
There's 1,000. I don't know, somewhere in Paul's writings.
1 Corinthians 15.
Okay, let's have a look.
So, because the thing is, this bro is just making stuff up. Literally making stuff up as he goes on.
Mecca was a real place.
Mecca was definitely a real place. We have evidence for it.
So what is? Let's just ask him a more pertinent question. Let's ask a more pertinent question. What is the earliest evidence of Mecca's existence? We're going to come to that. Don't worry. What is the earliest evidence of Mecca's existence that is undisputed by anyone? What year is that in?
It's the 8th century, not the 7th. Yeah.
Probably when the Ethiopians tried to invade, but they were destroyed by Allah's wrath.
No, that is not undisputed at all.
It is undisputed.
It is disputed by disputed by historians.
He was a real person. He tried to create an army to go destroy the Kaaba. He was defeated, and we don't know what happened to him after that. That is history right there, man. History, because he was destroyed by Allah when he tried to destroy the Kaaba.
The report that the Ethiopians tried to conquer Mecca. What year does that come from?
Probably from it was one of the writings of the Aksum Empire. They have it there somewhere.
You're making stuff up.
He's making stuff up. And the
It's an Islamic story. It's an Islamic story.
What they say you don't know? No, I don't know, but I don't know.
If you don't know, but you don't know a lot. You're saying you believe all these things, but you don't know why.
I don't commit them to memory because I'm convinced by them based on the evidence I see.
You probably know.
I'm not going to put everything in. This isn't my specialty.
I understand that, but don't speak about what you don't know.
But you're getting onto the topic, so I'm not going to say, no, I don't know. Because I do
can
know.
say that.
But
I
you're
do
making
know,
claims
but I know
saying you've got no evidence
a very
for.
reductionist understanding. I don't know everything.
I don't know what the
You haven't given me a whole bunch of evidence either, to be completely frank.
I've explained to you there are problems.
And I've explained to you that there
the
isn't.
vegetation in Mecca and the way it
There's no way any scholar could actually come up with any datum about that.
There's
no way, no one's actually studied it.
Actually are accepting that Mecca could be the
Neo-traditional
place.
scholars haven't been to Mecca or Medina.
Not many, well, all of them.
Neither have been.
Brother, I don't know why he turned. Was it you that he turned to and asked about whether there are religious Mecca? What was the reason he did that? Are you from Mecca? Have you been to Mecca? Why do you think that you knew? You're Saudi. So here we go. We've got a Saudi citizen who said,
I don't know a lot, by the way.
that's fine, that's fine. That's fine, that's fine. We're not saying
Nor
that
has
you
he studied
are a
the-
scholar of
Nor has he studied the
topography,
terrain of it either.
but you're unaware of rivers or riverbeds in Mecca.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's not quite sure. Why would he know that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, have you been to Mecca?
No, I've been to the Arabian Peninsula.
Right, but you haven't been to Mecca.
No, not exactly. Neither,
Right?
neither have you.
And you haven't provided any scholarship that shows riverbeds or rivers in
I
Mecca
can give you
either.
Islamic scholars.
That show riverbeds and rivers in
I can tell you
Mecca.
that Tabari affirms that there is a well there called Zamzam.
A well is
And it's
not a river. We're talking about
You can't
rivers.
sustain thousands and thousands of people with a well.
But it has though. But it has though.
But that's just Islamic myth.
No, but it isn't because it
What
has.
do you think the
I
Zamzam
can
well has
go there
supported
now.
hundreds of thousands of
I
people?
can go there now.
Right, shall I show you? I want to show you now that you have this habit of literally making things up on the spot.
go on.
Remember where he said Paul wrote that there were thousands that saw Christ post the resurrection. This is proof that this man makes things up on the spot.
Let's go.
Because the passage actually reads like this. Are you listening? Yeah, he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brethren at
Sorry,
one
500.
time.
And what is that? That is
So
about
there you go.
the population.
So not
That's about
thousands
a third of the
then.
population
Not
of Judah.
thousands
That's a third of the
then.
population of Judah put to him.
Not thousands then.
Come on, is it? No, you gave a specific
You said
number.
there was 2,000 that would be living there. 500
you
is a
would be
third.
lucky.
Sorry, a quarter.
I know.
A quarter
In
of people today are
Bethlehem.
Christians.
You see, you don't even listen. You
It's a
don't
lot of
even
witnesses.
listen.
Come
You
on.
don't even listen. You don't listen. Now, please have the humility to accept that you spuriously
Yeah, I was wrong.
are making
I was wrong, but I'm still right.
information.
I was wrong.
I am wrong, but I'm still right.
I'm still right.
I'm going to quote you on that one. A new Islamic rhetoric. I am wrong, but I'm still right.
A lot of Christians.
You know why?
A quarter of the Judean population.
Yeah.
A quarter.
So now we've established that you just make up things on the spot. I think that gives the rest of us pause about what we believe about your claims. I certainly now have pause to believe that you're not just making stuff up.
Okay, you know, just speak to me.
You know?
It's a lot, bro. It's a lot. It's a lot.
So
It's a lot.
Right.
Keep up. Here's my contention. Let's do it up. My contention is that you, even if it's 500, you said the population could be more than 1,000. That is a quarter of the Judean population that is now a Christian. A quarter. You think a quarter in that time was Christian?
No. Hold on one second.
Are you understanding the math?
And the thing is,
Are you understand the math?
No. Poor logic. Poor logic. Non sequitur logic. Shall I explain why it's non sequitur logic? Non sequitur logic. One, he assumes that they all came from the local region and didn't come from further afield. Two, he hasn't actually proven what the population and demographics of Judea are. That's something that is in dispute. Thirdly, I did not speak about Judea, I spoke about the town of Bethlehem. And I said, I didn't say it was 2,000, I said you would be lucky if it was 2,000. That's what I said. In other words, I'm implying that it has a lot less. And bearing in mind that your argument is based on the idea that hundreds, remember, you threw out the figure, 100,000 babies were killed, but no one talks about it.
Many babies were killed.
Oh, many. So we've gone from 100,000 to many thousand. Because you're making stuff up on the spot. And you know why you're doing that? Because you're proud. You're intellectually proud.
Do you believe the massacre of the innocent yesterday?
So, we're coming back to the Quran.
No,
we're coming back to Mecca. That's what we're talking
I
about.
want to discuss the massacre of the innocents.
Yeah.
You changed the topic.
Yeah, you're trying to get on the topic. So we're talking about topography of Mecca.
References of Mecca, yes? We're talking about how we know Mecca actually had this city that hundreds of thousands of people.
You have no proof.
You have no proof. You have no proof.
Yeah, but it's your burden. It's your burden. It's not our burden.
My argument is that the vegetation described of Mecca in the Quran does not fit the actual area. That's what we
Have we got the verses that we can look at? Okay, so if you pull that up on your phone, and then we'll...
What does it say?
We're going to put...
Vegetation does not fit the profile.
Yeah, it says
Yeah,
What if for some reason it does fit the profile?
Oh, then it's nonsensical.
okay, listen, right? Now, I will admit that this is from Wikipedia, so obviously there's a need for people to go away and check this because listen. No, listen. The first unambiguous reference to Mecca in external literature occurs in 741 Anno Domini in the Byzantine Arab Chronicle. So the first reference that we have of Mecca's existence is in the 8th century. 8th century. Oh, it's a conspiracy from the 8th century. It's a conspiracy from the 8th century.
A revisionist school that has been laughed out of every academic circle.
So the Byzantine Empire that records Mecca in the 8th century, and that's our earliest reference to Mecca, were part of a conspiracy.
It's a revisionist. It's a revisionist
defense.
It's a revisionist defense that has been laughed out of every academic circle.
But it hasn't.
Dan Gibson,
it hasn't.
Patricia Crone,
it hasn't.
Thomas Cook,
it hasn't.
Cannot stand up to any real academic structure.
It hasn't. You're making stuff up on the spot again. You are making stuff up on the spot again. Prove it. Prove it.
Patricia Crone and Thomas Cook both rescinded their books about Ishmael.
Prove it.
And Haganism.
Prove it.
Get Wikipedia. It's on Wikipedia.
Prove it.
Wait. You know why she did that, right?
But we've provided
she
proof.
actually got threats for some of the things she was saying.
Well, come on.
No. There are people who know her and have spoken to her in person, and she's confirmed. Yeah, like I'm not touching this.
Because how ridiculous it is.
It's a staple of modern scholarship. Patricia Crone. Her work on Hagerism is accepted by neo-traditionalists.
She rescinded herself.
Prove it.
Because she got threats.
Oh, come on, man. What's going on?
Has he got proof that he rescinded it?
Yeah, I do, because she's no longer promulgating.
Listen. She wrote this book.
So this is by Dr. Rafat Amory. Are you listening? Dr. Rafat Amory has written a paper that shows that studies by classical writers show that Mecca could not have been built before the 4th century AD. Dr. Rafat Amory. Studies by classical writers show that Mecca could not have been built before the 4th century. That's Dr. Rafat Amory.
What's the main element of it?
Okay. Oh, we don't know. Yeah.
She didn't say it, but why?
We have no lineages. No
because
lineages.
I'll tell you. Listen. Okay, listen.
I want to hear it.
Right, accurate data from Greek geography also excludes the appearance of Mecca before the 4th century. There's no mention of Mecca in the writings of any classical writer or geographer. This fact is an important argument against Islam's claim that Mecca has existed since the time of Abraham. We have completed records of Greek and Roman writers, as well as many geographers who visited Arabia from the 4th century BC through the 3rd century BC. Some of these people drew maps of Arabia, telling us about every city, village, tribe and temple existing there, yet none mentioned Mecca.
You know where the most accurate?
So now we've shown that there's scholarship behind this. How do you reply to that scholarship?
I'll be honest with you, it doesn't matter because
Doesn't matter.
I'll tell you why. These scholars who say those things, right? Wherever the man, if they did know about these things, like you said, you wrote on papyrus, but you wrote on papyrus, yes, and that would have been destroyed early in the BCs. It'd be destroyed. Just like how you made the argument about your New Testament, why you don't have as many fragments, because you made the claim that it was papyrus.
Right.
But
that's 100 years, right? That you're talking about thousands of years. You're saying that over thousands of years, not a single person wrote about Mecca.
No, I'm saying that they did. What we had
Except the evidence says the opposite.
Our parchments mention it because
The evidence says the opposite. What parchments? Sorry, what parchments?
Of the Quran and all these.
No. That is a lie again. You've literally just lied. I'll tell you why. Because the Islamic literature all dates from the 7th century onwards. There were no Islamic literature before Muhammad. Also, there was Islamic literature before Muhammad.
Of course there was.
Oh, this is interesting. Please.
There was pre-Islamic literature.
No, we're talking
Pre-Islamic literature.
Oh no, and so now we're talking about.
The pre-Islamic literature, we have poems that were memorized by thousands of companions before the advent of Islam.
Right.
So
yes.
we know that, and we even know their lineages. You know what I mean? So yes, there is pre-Islamic poetry. How else would they know that the Quran?
Great.
Pre-Islamic, not Islamic.
Pre-Islamic poetry.
Pre-Islamic.
Pre-Islamic.
Yes, of course.
Right, so that doesn't contradict this then, because this says that Mecca could not have existed before the 4th century.
Pre-Islamic poetry.
But that still contradicts Islamic fiction, because Islamic fiction says that it existed in the Bronze Age.
The lineages that we have go further back than the 4th century.
Evidence?
We have so from
Evidence.
Beni Hashim,
No.
Umayyah, all the lineages.
All you've just done is give out some names. Give me a quote.
Are you one of these people? Islamic scholars? Take it
Look,
up.
I've just found you some quotes. Let me quote you again. Listen. Are you listening? Are you listening? Because he's not listening. So, listen. So much so that they didn't put much stock in reports provided by merchants. We can see this in the writings of Strabo. Strabo was a 1st century geographist. A 1st century geographist. From Greece, and he was a historian who lived between 64 BC and 23 AD. He emphasized how important it is not to depend upon reports from merchants, but to depend upon the official findings provided by geographers and historians. So he was an academic of his own age.
He rejected people
Listen,
that confirmed this then.
listen,
Merchants coming from Arabia
listen.
confirmed this,
No,
and he said to
no, he
reject
didn't.
it. He said to
No, he
reject it.
didn't. You're not listening. You're not listening. He didn't reject reports about Mecca's existence. He had got.
rejected reports
No,
about
he did. He's not listening again. You're not listening, and you know why you're not listening? It's because your argument is busted, and all you've got is rhetoric, and all you've got is pride, and all you've got is hubris against facts. But the thing is, when people watch facts versus hubris and pride, they will go with facts.
Where do we find his manuscript?
Listen.
Where do we find his
Listen.
manuscript?
Okay.
When?
So he's scared to listen. So Strabo establishes a principle saying you don't trust what merchants say. He never mentions Mecca. Do you know why he never mentions Mecca? Because Mecca wasn't there to mention. He just established a principle. He said that you go off geographers and historians. Listen to what he said. He emphasized how important it is to not depend on the reports from merchants, but to depend upon the official findings provided by geographers and historians. This makes the research of the geography of Arabia provided by ancient Greek geographers and historians a valuable resource, especially when they tell us which cities existed in Western Arabia since the end of the 5th century BC through to the 4th century BC. We then see the facts gathered by Greek geographers and historians are extremely important in establishing dates that these cities first appeared. In short, Mecca is not mentioned anywhere by anyone.
Anyway, so this is becoming quite circular now. I would like to now go on to the topic of the massacre of the
He
innocent.
wants to change topics. No, let's stick to this topic.
You're not accepting my arguments, I'm not accepting your arguments. No, I have.
You haven't. All you've done is coming out with
What you take.
hubris statements and statements of pride.
The innocence, I want to know, is that historical? Did it ever take place? Because for some reason, these guys now are historians when it's not against them. I want to see if they're historians when it goes against them about the massacre of the innocent.
So he was
Did it
talking to
take
the
place?
camera.
Did it take place?
He's just changed his topic.
So let's stick. So let me talk to you about. Let me talk about.
We're talking about this either. We're talking about the manuscript.
We're talking about the existence of
I'm going
Mecca.
here now. I'm going here.
So you've got one argument which says that the topography described in the Quran doesn't match Mecca today. Find the
That hasn't been
verses.
studied by anyone.
Find the verses.
That wasn't-
Secondly, we have the absence of any historian's comments or geographer's comments that could identify Mecca as existing before the 4th century. And thirdly, the only undisputed reference to Mecca outside of Islamic literature, which is all 7th century anyway, The only undisputed one is by the Byzantine Romans, and that dates from the 8th century. So in other words, we have zero reasons to believe the Islamic fiction that Mecca existed at the time of Abraham or of Adam.
So let's look at the Christian fiction. So we have this.
No, we're not changing topics.
Why
are you changing topics?
Let's talk about Christian fiction.
No, changing topics.
Was there a massacre of the innocents that took place?
Changing topics.
Was there a massacre?
Well, yeah, it is. What about it?
I can't defend Mecca, therefore
I can't defend Mecca, so I'm going to change the topic.
The only one that
You know why? It's because he's outgunned. He's outgunned.
I'm going to give you some scholars for you as well for your massacre of the innocents. What massacre of the innocents? So the massacre. I've already argued all your points. The massacre of the innocents. The only person you can bring up to talk about this is your earliest historian Josephus, someone who was hated by by Herod. So Herod, he hated Herod.
So did Josephus talk about the massacre of the innocents?
No, he did not. He leaves it blank, like it never happened.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
literally wrote a book called The Atrocities of Herod, does not mention the massacre of the innocents. Why? Because it's part of Christian fiction.
Let's
It
not
never
change the
took
subject.
place.
We're going to stick to the topic. Listen.
There are forces in your
Listen.
Listen.
Yeah, walk away.
Are you arguing this point?
No, we're going to talk about what we're talking about. You're just changing. Yeah,
I'm going to walk away.
you're fine to walk away. If you can't defend Mecca's existence, walk away.
I've been here.
Just like, I don't know. I don't know.
Just have the humility to say I don't know.
I've refuted you evidence.
No, you haven't. All we've done is make statements. We've given you historians, academic studies, evidence from your own Quran. What have you got?
You do nothing about
And what's your point?
Anyway, so
What's your point?
I don't have anyone else working for me, Bob.
You've got nobody.
What I can
Nobody's
do-
on your
we can
side.
Move on to the massacre of the innocents.
Okay. So
You
you
can walk off if
you're
you
wrong
want
about
to.
Mecca.
Are you wrong about Mecca?
No, I'm not.
Based on what evidence?
Say you don't know because you certainly haven't proved it here. We showed you there are no references
You
to
weren't even here
Mecca.
for this conversation.
He was here. He was holding this. He was holding this. Listen.
Western people.
Western Orientalists who have never been to the land, who have never studied the topography.
Archaeus of Alexander the Great is not a Western historian. He was an historian.
Alexander the Great was a Macedonian. He was Greek.
Exactly, so he was before Islam. He was before Islam and any of these arguments. Yes, he did. Yes, listen. He went as far as Tylos, the island of Tylos. Where's Tylos?
Have no evidence.
Where's the island of Tylos? Bahrain.
Bahrain is up north.
Listen.
Bahrain is up north.
Listen.
Go far enough south.
Listen.
The rest of Saudi.
Listen.
Oh my God, this guy doesn't
Listen.
Bahrain is
Listen.
to the west of Saudi. You've not been to the Gulf.
What did you say?
Bahrain is to the
Bahrain
west
is on
of
the other
Saudi.
side, you silly. What are you talking about?
Bahrain is to the west of
I've been in
Arabia.
Kuwait,
Bahrain is in the
okay?
east, you idiot. What are you talking about?
I was born in Kuwait.
He was born in Kuwait.
He's got a ways to go, mate. He's got a ways to go.
Listen. Listen.
Nothing, man.
Listen. Listen.
Oh my God.
Alexander, listen.
All the Saudis go to screw in Bahrain.
I haven't even finished reading.
Don't stop
I
lying.
have not even finished reading. I have not even finished reading. I haven't even finished
I have no
reading.
idea what he's saying.
Listen. So Alexander the Great sent 3 naval expeditions from Babylon. The first was under Archaeus, who went as far as the island of Tylos in Bahrain. The second, are you listening? You see, he's clutching at straws. He's so desperate. He doesn't want to read. Listen. Okay. Alexander then sent another naval expedition under Astrothenes, who sailed to part of the peninsula of Arabia.
Which part?
We don't know, it's not mentioned. The third naval expedition was sent under Hieron of Soli. Aaron wrote, Hieron had received instructions to sail around the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. Oh, they're not laughing now. They're not laughing now. Hieron had received instructions to sail round the whole of the Arabian Peninsula as far as the Arabian Gulf near Egypt over against Hierapolis. us. Listen, though we had sailed around the greater part of Arabia, Hiram did not dare go further, but turned back to Babylon. Hiram sailing round the greater part of Arabia means he sailed around Western Arabia. No, he doesn't mention Mecca's existence. No one does. Nobody mentions it. Tell me one historian, one historian who mentions Mecca. One. Have you got one? So what we're doing for you, let me spell it out for you. Let me spell it out for you. Let me spell it out for you because you're desperate. Let me spell it out for you. We are listing the historians of antiquity, and we are finding that all of the historians of antiquity do not mention Mecca. Why do they not mention Mecca? Because Mecca was not there to mention.
Bahrain is next to Al-Khobar, which is Saudi Arabia. He said that Bahrain is not, so he doesn't know his geography.
Wait.
Bahrain is to the, Bahrain is to,
Right.
you don't know your geography, man, look. Look.
We're talking about east and west. It's all right.
So, Bahrain is
we're
east
showing
of
you.
Saudi Arabia.
Yes, right, bro. What's your topography verses? Your verses in the Quran about?
Not to the north. Not to the north. Bahrain is not to the north.
Guys, we can tell you're desperate. All you've got is noise and bluster. You know how you win this argument? Let me tell you how you win this argument. You give us a non-Islamic source from the 1st to the 4th century that mentions Mecca, and then you win. So give us one. Oh, we don't need to. We don't need to. Of course you do, because that's what we're disputing.
I'm not saying it didn't exist, we're saying it did. And you have to burn the proof. You're just showing us, I said it from west.
But how do you prove it? How do you prove a negative?
Positive, I don't know.
How do you prove a negative?
Positive.
Shall I tell you how? No. How do you prove a negative? Yeah, you don't know. Shall I tell you?
Show us how you prove a negative.
It's the same way you prove the existence of a unicorn. How would you prove the non-existence of a unicorn?
But this is not a unicorn, this is a...
How would you prove the non-existence of a unicorn? This is a logical argument. You shouldn't be children. Don't be mature. Do not be immature. Don't act like a child. This is a logical argument. How do you prove the non-existence of a unicorn?
Oh, you mean like Jesus died on the cross?
How do you prove the non-existence?
Oh, that's it. How do you prove that?
Right, how do you prove it? You prove it by the consistent absence of any evidence. So, if there is consistent absence of evidence of Mecca's existence from the 1st to the 4th century...
So you're saying Mecca was never a hub until when? When did Mecca become a
8th century.
I am saying I am saying no, a conspiracy from before Islam, apparently. This is how childish and immature Islam has made this man.
You're saying before Islam was there, it was not a trade route, it was not a...
Yes, but according to your fiction, we should have evidence of its existence outside of Islamic sources because of what your Islamic sources say. And he agrees.
I can appreciate that. No, I can
he appreciates.
I appreciate it, I don't agree.
So,
just because we don't have evidence from our side doesn't mean that it didn't exist at all, does it?
But what you're claiming, though, is that this is a massive city where hundreds of thousands of people came every year.
Yeah, and it's a...
No, that city where literally... No, we have no evidence of it.
It happened in Petra.
what will they drink? Where's your evidence?
Water.
Where's your evidence? That's not a river. Can we pull up the verses? Listen to what your Quran says. Listen to what your Quran says.
Yeah, verse 29, it clearly mentions olive trees. There are olive trees in this area. We know for a fact that's not true. There are not olive trees in any of the Arabian Peninsula. They come from the Mediterranean. What, in Mecca?
Olive trees.
There are vegetation.
Are they growing olive trees today in Arabia?
Vegetation.
Are they growing olive trees? Are they growing olive trees in
I
Arabia?
can't speak what was there 400 years ago.
We know that
You're
you're
from the Arabian Peninsula. Are they growing olive trees in Mecca?
Probably. They're doing everything there now.
No way.
But
He doesn't know the geography, he doesn't know the agriculture, he doesn't know anything.
the Palestinians, one of their claims against Israel is that they have olive trees that their grandfathers had, that their great-grandfathers had, that their great-great-grandfathers had, and they trace it right, some of them, they trace their olive farms right back to the time of Jesus, and that's why they argue this is their land. So what? Right? Listen, olive oil has always been a commodity since the classical period. If the Arabian Peninsula traded in olive oil, it would have continued to trade in olive oil.
Well, they don't know. How do they do it?
Well, where's your evidence?
Where's your evidence?
Wait, we know from
Other
we
than
know
Dan
from
Gibson, where's your evidence?
Well, you mean the people who are experts on the Meccan trade? You understand that they are considered the experts in academia about the trade that went through the Arabian Peninsula. Trisha Crone,
She is an expert. She's an expert. She's an expert.
Academic circle.
More than you. You're lying.
The current scholars
lying.
in Oxford.
What's the verse again? What's the verse again?
80:29.
Find your next one.
There are many of these, by the way.
That's fine.
They don't want to talk about the Bible. They only want to talk about the
We never started talking about the Bible. You brought it up.
Bro, that was you, bro. Listen, I'm literally going to talk about the Bible after we're done in this debate. When I've done that talk, we can talk about the Bible. I'm inviting you to talk about the Bible after we finish with this talk.
We'll see how long that takes.
Okay, so 80 what?
29.
80:29. And you're going to find another one.
Yeah. There was a book written by...
You want me to change my religion because you think there was no...
What about it?
This is accepted by scholars, by the way. Islamic scholars accept that it is about Mecca having olive trees.
Only the text that I was supposed to be mandate. We don't. Find me one scholar. Wait. Find me one scholar. No, he don't want to get involved. He don't want to get involved.
He's got involved.
Listen. This is what your Quran says about Mecca, the kinds of things that we found in Mecca at the time of the 7th century.
You never found anything.
The we is the authors of the Quran. That's it. Listen what they say. And produce therein corn, grapes, nutritious plants, olives, dates, enclosed gardens, dense with lofty trees. Does that sound like Mecca?
Sound like Mecca to me.
Does that sound like Mecca?
I thought Mecca was
Right now.
You're saying there's no possibility of there being a river in Mecca? Is that what you're saying?
You need to prove that there was, because all evidence says there wasn't.
How far is that from the coast? How far is that from the coast?
You said it was about 100 miles.
Yeah, that's about 100.
Yeah.
Look at all that water deposits all the way across. All the way.
So not rivers.
All the way across.
So not rivers.
All the way. Yeah, but
So not rivers.
And they had desalination plants.
Not rivers.
They had desalination plants in the 7th century.
Is that not happening with the rivers? Come on, man. Lake Chad no longer exists. And it was massive in the last 50 years. What?
You have not even yet established any evidence of Mecca's existence from before the time of Islam.
it's one of the best trade routes there is, so I don't know.
No evidence. Oh wait, he said, right, this is why I'm going to show how one Muslim contradicts another Muslim.
Okay.
Here, remember when I pointed out that the Romans invaded the Arabian Peninsula in the 1st century? And this brother said that the 100 miles between the coast and Mecca was such a hostile environment that entire armies would be wiped out.
From the other side.
But now, this Muslim is saying that it is such a great trade route that of course Mecca had to exist.
You said from the east.
I said from the west.
No. You said
No, you weren't listening. No, you weren't listening. You weren't listening. You weren't, only if you stomp on my foot.
Yeah.
Only if you stomp on my foot.
He doesn't turn the other cheek.
Yeah. Turn the other cheek has got nothing to do with being a pacifist.
He doesn't turn the other cheek.
So, you're jumping around different points. No, that was an entirely different thing. The difference between you and me is I know what argument I'm making and you're too busy talking to one another to listen.
Yeah.
You haven't listened to my argument because just like now, you're talking to one another. And that's why you're getting my argument confused. But we have a camera record. So you can go back and watch the camera record. You're confusing different parts of my argument. So we've got this description of Mecca from the 7th century. Bearing in mind that it is an environment, according to him, that is so hostile, entire arguments would be wiped out. Would be wiped out. But yet, it is so lush in irrigation and so lush in water that we find corn and grapes and nutritious plants and olive dates and enclosed gardens and dense and lofty trees and fruits and fodder for use and convenience to you and your cattle. That's a lot of water.
Are you now going to argue there was no cattle in Mecca?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, good.
Are you saying that he came from here and went all the way down to here?
No.
Or are you saying he went from here and went
Let me correct you.
That would be even
Are you
worse.
listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening?
Show us.
Right. Are you listening? I'm going to tell you.
I'm interested now.
Right. So the Roman invasion that I referenced came from here. They invaded across and they came down and they got down to here. And they took every stronghold and city along that place.
Where did they get the water from?
Never happened.
Where did they get the water from?
Never
How did they sustain
How will they sustain an army coming from there to there?
How did they do it? Seawater?
I thought there was no water. Hang on. I thought there was no
Oh,
water.
you saying it. So now you're arguing there was no water. Do you see they're contradicting themselves? So to argue that the Romans could not have reached Mecca, they say there was no water. But then to argue that the Quran is right, they're saying there was water. So was there water or no water?
You're saying there isn't. So how did they sustain themselves?
It's called supply lines. Armies invade with logistics. And he laughs at that idea. He's laughing at a simple martial
They
principle.
wouldn't even make it through petrol.
See, the hottest
You don't know your history.
Aqaba, they wouldn't even make it through
Here's your phone. Right, I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up the invasion.
Have you watched Lawrence of Arabia? You know that half that army died just trying to.
Okay, listen. The key point here is that there's no evidence that Mecca was an actual city that had hundreds of thousands of people. I keep going back to it.
Give me you saying.
Well, just give evidence against it.
But he's saying that an army came from here all the way down
Would
to
you
here.
agree?
I would never do that. Would you make it halfway? I'll be done.
Would you agree? Would you agree that the description in the Quran describes a well-cultivated agricultural?
And I showed you there's water around this area.
Right, so we've got this description of a well-cultivated agricultural society.
It's green there now. It's green there now.
So,
Make it different.
and how many people,
millions of years ago,
how
this
many
is 100
pagans used to come to Mecca to do their pilgrimages?
It doesn't say exactly.
That doesn't say. Why is that important?
There would have been massive. It said, didn't it not say that people from all over the world came to the Kaaba?
Does it
Your
say?
own traditions. Did your
No.
own
What
traditions.
do you mean own tradition?
You have given. Oh, he's demanding sources. He's given none in this entire debate.
Give me a source.
You haven't given a single source for anything in this entire debate.
No.
You haven't.
The only one you gave was Ptolemy. We said that was wrong, and then that was it. You
I
understand?
said somebody as well. Come on.
Not
Tubbery is after the 7th century.
You asked me for something. I gave it to you.
I'm
Yes,
talking about
but
before.
we're talking about before.
He has a tradition.
Tubbery
going all the way
doesn't
back.
count.
He goes all the way
He has
back.
a tradition
He
of
makes
being
a
used by
claim
Muslims
that
and
he
they don't
does.
have any
He
argument.
Makes a claim. Based on what evidence?
Huh?
Based on what evidence?
So he wrote for the Abbasid Caliph. He was Mansur.
So
I believe.
Abbasid Caliph was after Muhammad.
Yeah, but we have lines of narration. We have lines of narration going all the way back, even before pre-Islamic Arabia.
Anyone can make up a list, bro.
This is what a Christian says because they have no lines anyway.
No, we do. We have our
Give
own.
me one.
What?
Give me one line of narration.
Okay, I can
The lines
demonstrate
of the
the
patriarchs,
teachings
the lines
of
of the
John from
patriarchs, the lines of the
Ignatius
bishops.
and from Irenaeus. I just did. I can demonstrate the sayings of John from Irenaeus, from Polycarp, and from Ignatius. Done.
He's trying to change the topic.
No.
Trying to change the
Okay,
topic.
fine, I won't do that, okay.
No, he just lied.
No, not that.
Who did John teach? Who did John teach?
Polycarp.
Sorry?
Polycarp.
And then Polycarp to where?
Irenaeus.
No. Irenaeus comes in about 200 or 300 or something, mate.
Was Polycarp
Was Irenaeus teaching in France? Yes or no?
Was Polycarp a disciple of John?
According to your church tradition, yes.
According to history. Yes.
According to your
According
church
to
tradition,
writings
that's made up,
we
yes.
have today.
According
yes,
to
you
Christian
are.
fiction, yes.
It's terrible.
I'm just reciprocating. Because we had a good conversation. No one was insulting anyone until he came.
Wait, he hasn't insulted anyone.
He has. He kept saying Islamic fiction. Islamic fiction. Islamic fiction. Bro, he only did it. He only did it when he came in.
Why we're having a nice conversation? Why are you telling people shut?
Until the cavalry came, he was quiet. He was telling everyone to shut up. When they saw my prophet, I'll just smack it. I'll kill someone. No, because the thing is, don't challenge him.
Why are you trying to get through? You're not scaring anyone. You just look like a clown. That is a clown.
Oh my God! Oh, Jesus is a clown. He's a false man god. He's a clown. Wait.
Do you say your prophet was a pedo? Jesus is a clown.
I don't believe in Jesus.
I thought that
I don't believe. No, I don't believe in Jesus.
I thought Islam affirms.
I don't believe in Jesus. Jesus is a false man god. I don't believe in Jesus.
So you're not a Muslim?
I believe in Isa ibn Maryam. Never existed. Exactly. Look, he doesn't believe in Isa anyway, so I don't believe in you, Jesus. See what I'm saying? Jesus. By the way, Jesus is actually a false man god.
What did they call it?
Your Quran affirms the Injil, yes, and the one to whom the Injil was revealed to.
We don't have the Injil.
Yeah, you lost it, right?
You lost it.
No, you lost it. Your Quran claims to affirm the Injil, but you lost it.
The Injil, you don't have the Injil.
Right, are you listening?
No, you didn't lose anything.
You claim to believe in the Injil,
My
you lost
Quran
it.
is preserved.
You've got no evidence of the Injil.
We have the preservation.
And to be a Muslim, you have to affirm
Again, we don't need any evidence. Their entire argument is based on the fact they don't need evidence.
Do you want evidence?
Right.
I can give you.
I want to go back to.
I can give you evidence of the Injil.
I just want to establish the Roman invasion of Arabia to show that you're wrong. Right? So this is recorded. Are you listening?
I don't like this.
Are you listening?
Is this yours?
Are you listening?
Engage
So the
him.
Roman invasion of Arabia. Are you listening?
This is this.
The Roman invasion of Arabia. You notice that you don't want to listen.
I'm the owner.
Yeah.
I don't want to be next
Make
to
your
you.
point. Make your point. God, make your point.
It is cheap tricks. That's all they've got. Hubris, pride, and cheap tricks.
All right.
No evidence.
Here comes Bob's sophistry.
evidence.
Here comes Bob's sophistry and
Well, here comes Bob's facts, ladies and gentlemen. Facts versus ego and pride.
Let's go, Bob. Come on.
The Arabian expedition launched by the Romans in the 1st century, in the 1st quarter of the 1st century, in the lifetime of Jesus Christ, was recorded by Cassius Dio and Pliny the Elder, and also Strabo. They undertook an expedition from Egypt, just like I said, by the command of Caesar Augustus, partly with a view, listen, to explore the country.
They didn't get far though. They
To
didn't get
explore
far.
the country
They didn't get far.
and its
It
inhabitants,
was an utter failure. This
and
expedition
partly
was an
to
utter failure.
conclude treaties of friendship with the people, or to subdue them if they should oppose Roman rule. For it was believed at the time that Arabia was full of all kinds of treasures. When Aurelius Gallus,
They got
are
the
you
oil.
listening?
They got the oil, baby.
Aurelius Gallus set out with his army. He trusted to the guidance of a Nabatean called Silius,
Nabatean king all
who
the way up north.
deceived
All the way up
and
north.
misled him. A long account of this expedition through the desert is given by Strabo, who derived most of his information about Arabia from his friend Aelius Gallius, the leader of the expedition.
Didn't even make it to Medina.
The burning heat of the sun, the bad water, the want of everything necessary to support life. Did you get that? Everything necessary to support life. For the Quran says cornfields, luscious trees, dates, is
He hasn't
formed.
disproved it. He hasn't disproved it. He hasn't disproved it.
No, it isn't. Because if this is saying that the things to support life are not there, then the description of the Quran is wrong.
Where was that?
Continue.
He won't give it to you. He won't give it to you.
Continue.
How far did they get?
Where?
They didn't even make
Continue.
Medina.
Look, you can
The
see.
bad water, the want
Adam, they
of
didn't even go.
everything necessary
They
to
didn't even
support
make it to
life
Medina. Give it rest.
produced a disease amongst the soldiers that was altogether unknown to the Romans and destroyed the greater part of the army, which was your point. Destroyed the greater part of the army, so that the Arabs were not only not subdued, but succeeded in driving the Romans even from those parts of the country which they had possessed before. Aelius Gallius spent 6 months on his march into the country on account of his treacherous guide, while he effected his retreat in 60 days,
60
obliged
would not
to
get you anywhere near
return to
Jerusalem.
Alexandria, having lost the greater part of his force.
60 days
The
would
campaign is subject of a 1951 model, the Eagle and the Sun.
See, when you come to God's land, it doesn't work out for you, man.
That's
Yeah, when you
right.
come to the big cause trouble in God's land, it doesn't work out.
Come to Allah's
You leave
land,
in
that's it,
60
bro.
days or less.
60
days or less.
1 second.
Didn't even make it halfway, bro.
Leave the country.
Where's your proof?
Where's your proof?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
It's over.
Where's your proof?
Let's
When
go
you're,
to
hold
the
on 1
Bible.
second.
Guys, bro.
Let's slaughter
So
the
we've
Bible now.
established,
Guys, man.
we've established that the Romans did invade Arabia.
For 60 days.
No, for
That
6
was- that
months.
was- that was-
Notice how they're very selective.
I told him.
Notice how they're very selective. For 6 months. How far across Arabia can you get in 6 months?
They didn't.
Not far
not there
alive.
for
How
I
far?
could probably, if I
didn't
had
get
all the water I needed, I can do it in maybe 3 months.
3 months.
I don't have any water.
3
I don't
months.
have any supplies.
3 months.
I've got horses. I've got horses.
You can cover Arabia in 3 months.
No, not the whole thing.
So how far can you get in 6 months? How far can you get in 6 months?
Untrained, probably not very far. Probably die in the 5th day.
Literally, well, clearly they were not untrained because they were there for 6 months. Now answer me again. How far can you get in 6
What part
months?
of Arabia were they in for 6 months? What part?
They came from Egypt.
Okay.
They were going to Yemen.
They were sailing.
Where?
They were sailing.
No, I said marching.
They did not march all the way
It literally said marching. There you go. He doesn't want to deal with the evidence.
If they came from Egypt and they went to Yemen, surely they would go along the west coast, yeah? Alongside the Red
Coming
Sea.
from the furthest corner to get to Mecca.
So they would go past
They weren't going to Mecca, they were going to Yemen.
They don't even know where they're going.
Egypt is
Yeah,
here,
it doesn't make sense.
Mecca is here, the Red Sea is in between. You would do this, right?
There wouldn't even be a Jeddah. You wouldn't even get to Jeddah.
How do you know?
You wouldn't even get to Jeddah.
Have you ever made the journey?
Bro, 100 miles inland.
Have you ever seen an army make the journey?
An army would be impossible. Logistically, it's impossible.
You're making stuff up again. We already know you make stuff up.
Why do you think no one was ever
We
able
already
to
know
conquer
you
Mecca?
make stuff
No
up.
one was ever able to conquer them for this exact reason.
We know
Makes
that
sense?
you are making stuff up.
Okay, where do you think they went? Where did they go? So here's,
So
here's
he
Mecca
came from
here.
Egypt, yeah?
Right, what's
And he
the
said he wanted to
logical
go to-
route?
How would you do
What's
it?
the
How would
logical
you do
route
it?
from
Yeah, if they knew
Arabia
exactly where they wanted
to
to go.
Yemen?
How would
What's
you
the
do it?
logical route?
From here to here?
Yes, what's the logical route?
If.
What's the
It
logical
would be
route?
here.
Where's Mecca?
How far is that?
Where's Mecca?
How far is that?
Where's Mecca?
It's 100. It's 100 miles inland.
It's along the way.
They would have
And they were marching for how many months? How many months?
Here we go.
And they were marching for how many months?
They're staying close to the water. Why would they go there?
Right.
Staying close to the water, they wouldn't go in.
And I don't even think they made it this far, to be honest.
To explore the
Because
How do you know?
You don't know either.
How do you know?
You don't know either. So why would they certainly diverge their course and go inland? Why?
Yeah, they have no reason. They have no reason.
The only reason that they would need to do that is because they found the river.
Yeah, and if they were Arabs, if they were Arabs, they would know about it as well. So they would know the route to get there. Bro, this is the Arabian Peninsula. Your European Romans couldn't deal
They
with it.
couldn't
Don't
handle
understand.
that. They're used to this
They
European
had to
weather.
look, Adam, they're hugging the water. They're hugging the water. No, they're hugging the water, man. I want to stay with the water. I'm a coward. I'm a
So
coward.
basically, all you've got is noise.
No,
That's all you've got. Shall I tell you what evidence? Shall I tell you what evidence we've stacked up against
Show me
you?
where it says March.
Shall we tell you?
Show me where it says March.
Sure.
Show me where it says
I
March.
did read it to you. You should have listened. No, hold on, 1 second. Right? The fact that you were so rude, you were not even listening to me when I read, is not my problem. Watch the recordings, and you'll see I read Marx.
Anyway, are we going to do Mask of the Innocents, or we've been doing this for a long time?
Right, I'm going to do a talk then on something else.
Okay, let's do it. You don't want to talk about Mask of the Innocents?
I want to go talk to.
Okay, no worries. Thank you, boys.
Okay, good luck, guys.
Appreciate it.
I hope you guys find your true religion. Take care. Take care.
You're gonna, we don't have a debate.
Do you want to?
We'll later. Just sit around.
So we had a quick chat. Quick. I'll say it was quick. Yeah, it didn't turn out to be quick. It was a chat about the historicity of Mecca, as well as about the early manuscripts of Islam. We talked about the Salam manuscripts, talked about the Birmingham book folio. This Muslim knew a bit more than most Muslims, but I think ultimately he had to accept that Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abdullah ibn Masud had totally different codexes that contradicted what Uthman put together. Therefore, I was saying that you cannot say that the Quran is perfectly preserved because what's his name? Uthman's Quran does not conform with what the other reciters had before them. In fact, it's different. And because they disagreed, you can't say it's perfect.
Okay, so and I just want to say this is why we need more Christians down in the corner with good cameras. Because we have a good Christian evangelist here who's working, and I'm a Christian evangelist here that's working, but we've only got one camera. Like, guys, like, you know, we're like the Templars at the beginning of the birth of the Knights Templar. We're riding 2 knights to 1 horse. Like, we need more. So, Christian brothers and sisters, if you've got good cameras and you know how to use them and you know how to work them, come down here and record the Christian evangelists doing the Lord's work. Right? Stop being spectators. Get involved. And I say again, and I've repeated this many, many times, the Christian church needs to take evangelism that's happening here at the corner seriously. Because there's real good evangelism happening here at the corner. And it's about time that the church recognizes that. You know? So, like, where are your teams? Where is your support for the teams working here? Now, to the point that we were talking about Mecca, the Quran gives a description that states this about Mecca and says that Mecca produces therein corn and grapes and nutritious plants and olives and dates, has enclosed gardens, dense and lofty trees, fruits and fodder for use and convenience to you and your cattle. And Muslims make the claim that Mecca has existed since the Bronze Age at the latest. Bronze Age, that's the time of David. They say Abraham and Isaac, so it's actually right at the beginning of the Bronze Age, before the Bronze Age possibly. And yet we've got no evidence of Mecca existing. No one writes about it, no one talks about it. The Romans invaded the Arabian Peninsula, never came across it. Geographers are silent about it completely. And scholarship believes that Mecca could only have existed at the earliest from the 4th century onwards. From the 4th century onwards means that Muslims' claims about Mecca are fiction. And when we ask Muslims for proof, what do they give us? 7th century and later texts talking about Mecca's existence. Nothing before. And the reason why they're not giving us anything before is because there isn't anything before. And the reason why there isn't anything before is because there was no Mecca to talk about. So that means that the Quran is giving a false description of a city that doesn't exist.